Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honour to rise today to share with you, Mr. Speaker, and all my colleagues, a brief report on the events in Lima, Peru in December 2014 at the 20th Conference of the Parties on the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. I know all members will be very concerned about the results of the conference, since the Government of Canada and all parties in this place adhere to at least the same goal: to ensure that we have a legally binding, comprehensive treaty by December 2015 at the next conference, which will be the 21st Conference of the Parties. And all countries around the world and all parties in this place are also, at least on paper, committed to ensuring that the levels of greenhouse gases be brought down, sufficient to ensure that the planet not experience as much as a 2 degrees Celsius global average temperature increase. We have a long way to go to make the treaty work in December 2015. We need to work together. The results from Lima were not encouraging. In fact, we need Canada to show leadership. Thank you, Mr.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, last Friday I was privileged to welcome to Richmond Hill the Right Honourable Prime Minister for an historic anti-terrorism announcement to help protect Canadians here at home. The Anti-Terrorism Act 2015 further exemplifies our government's commitment, Mr. Speaker, to keep our streets and communities safe, including from those who would perpetrate terror on the Canadian people. With this legislation, law enforcement agencies will have additional tools to detect and apprehend terrorists and to keep pace with evolving threats. Mr. Speaker, my constituents congratulate this government for taking such strong action. Like Carol Jean from Richmond Hill, who writes, "Our Prime Minister is courageous. He will not let Canadians down, and this legislation is needed to protect innocent lives." Or Sean, who says, "On anti-terrorism, we finally have a Prime Minister that gets it and does what he says." I am proud to be part of a government, Mr. Speaker, that is committed to protecting the safety and security of all Canadians. Thank you.
The honourable member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Not beyond us is the theme of this year's World Cancer Day. And, Mr. Speaker, this is a message the global community needs to hear. Currently, 7.6 million people die from cancer worldwide every year. Currently, the Canadian Cancer Society has stated that over 76,000 Canadians die from cancer in the year 2014. Clearly, Mr. Speaker, there must be a global commitment to drive advancements in policy and implementation of comprehensive national cancer control plans. To succeed in this endeavour, we must share a collective responsibility to support low- and middle-income countries. Ensuring the availability and access to early detection programs for cancer will significantly reduce cancer burden on all countries. We must stand nation alongside nation to ensure that one day the World Cancer Day theme changes from not beyond us to now behind us.
The honourable member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
After decades of drug running, extortion, and prostitution by the mafia, it appears the mob has found a racket even more profitable than wind turbine subsidies. In Ontario, these subsidies are disguised as a carbon tax on your electricity bill called the Global Adjustment. For those on fixed incomes, they either pay up or are threatened with having the power cut. It's called energy poverty. FIT subsidies were dreamt up in Toronto by the same individuals who now surround the Green leader of the Liberal Party in Ottawa. This is not about renewable energy projects or who cares more about the environment. This is about a few Liberal Party insiders collecting huge sums of money at the expense of the environment and people who can least afford it. The Green Energy Act is bankrupting Ontario and will bankrupt Canada when Toronto Liberal advisors impose their radical extremist policies on all Canadians. Rather than be lost at sea with a party adrift with extremist policies, Canadians will continue to benefit from the strong, steady hand of a Conservative government.
Right. Honourable member for Sydney, Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize weatherman extraordinaire Mr. Frankie McDonald of Whitney Pier, Nova Scotia. Frankie the weatherman, as he's come to be known, has taken the internet by storm, making international headlines for his weather reports. He created his forecast after monitoring weather on television and computer, and then takes it to the internet. and with his knowledge, enthusiasm to let us know what type of weather we can expect and how best to prepare. Since he was a young boy, Frankie has always been interested in the weather. His commitment and dedication to further his passion has led his videos being viewed by millions around the world, turning his hobby into a career. Mr. Speaker, I ask all members of this House curious about their weather forecast to visit Frankie McDonald's Facebook page for informative, up-to-date reports. We as Cape Bretoners are very proud of Frankie the Weatherman and wish him all the best as he continues to keep us safe from Mother Nature. Canadians are deep in winter. As Frankie says, stay safe, stay warm, and good luck.
The honourable member for York Centre.
Speaker, for people of Vietnamese heritage living in Canada, Tet is a time of rebirth and renewal, a time to let go of the difficulties of the past year and look forward to the promise of a new beginning. This year is particularly poignant for Canada's Vietnamese community, many of whom make York Centre their home. It marks the 40th anniversary of the fall of Saigon to the communist forces from the north. To commemorate this anniversary, I, along with Senator Than Hai No, are co-sponsoring Bill S-219, the Journey to Freedom Day Act. This bill will establish April 30th as the day to commemorate the exodus of Vietnamese refugees and recognize Canada's role in welcoming so many. This bill also pays homage to the boat people's perilous journey in search of freedom, many of whom lost their lives at sea. Also, although a sad anniversary, the Journey to Freedom Day Act will serve as a reminder of both the boat people's hazardous journey, but also a celebration of their arrival in Canada. As we celebrate the Year of the Goat, which symbolizes cooperation, peace, and harmony, I say to all Canadians of Vietnamese origin, Chak Mang Nam Moi.
The Honourable Member for La Salle et Mar. Yes. Mr. Speaker, we recently learned that 300 jobs will be lost in La Salle because of the closure of Target. This situation is in addition to the many closures of businesses and industries in the Montreal region. The retail sector is in full growth in Canada, but most of the jobs created are often uncertain and poorly paid. We're losing jobs at home, and the Conservatives are blaming others. It's time to elect a government that will be an NDP in government that will assume its responsibilities, will fight for the middle class by protecting jobs at home, and ensure that people receive adequate support if they lose their job. The NDP wants to create sustainable jobs in sectors of the future by supporting Canadian companies who won't turn their backs on their employees. We are proposing tangible measures to put Canada on the right track and protect jobs and Canadian investments.
It is a great honor that I stand before you today to recognize Nachbali, an organization which comprises of strong, passionate, and talented group of young women who are determined to empower girls and break through the gender discrimination in the South Asian community. Last week, I was privileged to attend the Lori for Her 2015 event organized by Nachbali. Lori is a festival that marks new beginning and celebrates the gift of life traditionally for newborn boys. Since December 2011, Nachbali has hosted annual Lori for Her event, which have received enormous encouragement and involvement from the community. On the International Day of Girl, I had a great opportunity to participate in a Pink Laddu event organized by Nachbali, where we greeted parents of newborn babies and celebrated the birth of baby girls with pink laddus at the Brampton Civic Hospital. I want to congratulate the entire Nachbali team for a wonderful work they do to create more gender equality through their initiatives, and I encourage them to continue being a great inspiration for girls around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Ottawa-Orleans.
Mr. Speaker, in 11 days we will celebrate an important milestone in our history, the 50th anniversary of Canada's distinctive flag. Getting a flag approved by Parliament was no mean feat. The search for a new flag began in 1925, following a Privy Council initiative. En 1946,
In 1946, the search was renewed with the creation of a select parliamentary committee. In 1964, a joint committee of the Senate and House of Commons was established and approved a proposal brought forward by Canadian historian Colonel George Stanley and parliamentarian and jurist John Matheson.
The Canadian flag was raised by Governor-General Georges Vanier on February 15, 1965, under the watchful eye of Prime Minister Lester B. Pearson. Mr. Speaker, the blood of our troops that was spilled in order to keep this flag flying high the symbol of our values of freedom, democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Célébrons-le.
Let's celebrate it.
Honourable Member for Beaches, East York.
Mr. Speaker, years ago at Danforth and Vic Park, Ford, then Nash Motors, and finally American Motors churned out cars for the Canadian market and provided good jobs for Toronto. That old auto plant now houses, but just for a few more weeks, a Target store. That, Mr. Speaker, tells a story about the failed economic management of successive Liberal and Conservative governments. In just a few weeks, dozens of part-time employees will lose their jobs at that store. Many will not be eligible for EI, yet another indictment of Liberal and Conservative governments. Many come from the Crescent-Town community, a community with double Toronto's unemployment rate, double Toronto's poverty rate, where too many work long and hard but continue to struggle. This is the urban economy created by successive Liberal and Conservative governments. Mr. Speaker, earlier this month, the Finance Minister promised these employees every assistance to find new employment. These employees want to know when that's coming, where it is. If it's for real, it can't come soon enough.
The honourable member for Calgary North East.
Speaker, since coming to office, our government has made it a duty to ensure that Canadian families have the support they need to grow and thrive. This is why our Prime Minister announced that we would be putting hard-earned money back into the pockets of Canadian mums and dads with our family tax cut plan and the enhanced childcare benefit. Soon, families in my riding of Calgary Northeast will receive just under $2,000 annually per child under the age of 6. Awesome. When you add it up, Mr. Speaker, a family with 5 children will receive nearly $60,000 by the time their children turn 6 years old. But notwithstanding his lack of experience, the Liberal leader has shown that same old Liberal Party arrogance by pledging to reverse our tax breaks. They will take this money away from Canadian families. Mr. Speaker, unlike the members on that side of the House, we will continue to stand up for hard-working Canadian families. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. During this National Eating Disorders Awareness Week, we have to remember that the images published in the media are often excessively manipulated and impose an ideal of beauty based on extreme thinness on us. I therefore have launched the campaign Let's Be Realistic, asking the media to promote healthier and diverse body images. I'm also asking the federal government to implement a national strategy on eating disorders. I would invite you to visit the website soyonsrealistes.ca and sign the petition. Many people are already acting to encourage diverse body images, including Lisa Jobin, who owns the Alizé and Collection store, which has clothing to enhance all shapes and sizes, and Marie-Christine Boit, who was a student at Collège Bois-Priant, who won a literary contest on this theme. Let's be realistic together and change mentalities.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday we found out that the NDP have yet again abused taxpayer dollars when they funneled $2.7 million from their House of Commons office budgets to pay for so-called satellite offices in Quebec. Once again, the NDP continues to defend its illegal satellite offices and to deny any wrongdoing. My constituents think this is unacceptable. The rules have always been clear. It is not acceptable to use House of Commons resources to fund party offices. Unlike the NDP, we believe that political parties should pay for their own campaign offices using their own funds. It is sad that the NDP has demonstrated a pattern of abuse of taxpayer dollars. On this side of the House, we believe they should repay these funds immediately.
And all Canadians also. Honourable Member for Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, against tremendous odds, the unique group of Canadians and Americans were called upon to perform some of the most difficult tasks of the Second World War. Yesterday, for their achievements and their sacrifices, members of the Devil's Brigade were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian honour the United States Congress can bestow. The 1st Special Service Force was an elite group made up of soldiers from both sides of the border that were trained to jump out of planes, climb mountains, sneak behind enemy lines, and fight hand-to-hand if need be. I want to congratulate Canadians John Callowhill,
James Summersides, Vernon Doucette, Herb Papard, Arthur Pottle, Wilfred Paquette, George Wright, Donald Ballantyne, Morris Lazarus, H.R. Hawkyard, Charles Mann, Ralph Mayville, Leonard Corbett, and Maurice White. I also want to honor veterans like Bernard Cooper, who couldn't travel to the ceremony, and like Al Wilson, who passed away sadly the day before, lest we never forget these men and the men who went before them.
Honourable Member for Mississauga East Cooksville.
Mr. Speaker, while Canada's economy is better than many, we still remain on the road to recovery. A carbon tax is not a way to deal with economic issues in our country. Bringing in higher taxes and higher debt is not the path we believe Canadians want to be on. Canadians can't afford more of the NDP and Liberals' risky tax hike schemes. Our government believes in the importance of a strong economy and refuses to weigh it down with another tax on Canadian families. Bringing in job-killing carbon tax is reckless. Mr. Speaker, our Conservative government is lowering taxes for families and putting more money back into their pockets. Keeping taxes low and creating jobs are essential to keeping this economy on the right track. We will never punish Canadians with job-killing carbon tax.
Never. The Honourable Member for Hamilton Mountain.
More bad news about jobs this week, and still no plan from the Conservatives. Today, 383 workers at Wrigley Canada in Toronto found out they were losing their jobs. After 52 years, production is going to shift to Gainesville, Georgia. This comes right on the heels of other hardworking Canadians losing their jobs in retail. 17,600 families got hit by Target's closure because of a foreign company that bought out their stores and then shut them down. 400 jobs lost from Tim Hortons corporate offices, along with Sony closing 14 stores and Mex closing 95 stores. In total, 16 different chains have shut down or pulled out of Canada. And what do we get from the Conservatives? They're playing politics with the legitimate concerns of Canadians about safety from terrorism. They're planning tax cuts for the most well-off, and they're delaying their budget. Canadians deserve better, Mr. Speaker, and this year they'll get better when the NDP forms government.
Mr. Speaker, our family tax cut helps 100% of families with kids. Families in Don Valley East and all families with kids across Canada will benefit from our new family tax cut. Every single family in my riding and across Canada will benefit by an average of over $1,100 per year, with parents receiving almost $2,000 per child. But the NDP have never met a tax they didn't like, and the Liberals have never seen a tax they wouldn't hike. The Liberal leader has even pledged to reverse our tax cuts and threatened to do exactly what the Liberal Party elites always do, raise taxes on ordinary Canadians to put into the hands of bureaucrats. Only this Conservative government can be trusted to put more money back into the pockets of people of Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, every day now there's news of more job losses in Canada on this Prime Minister's watch. The latest, 400 being laid off from the Wrigley plant in Toronto. What is the Prime Minister doing to help these laid-off workers and to help the tens of thousands of others who've lost their jobs in just the last month? What specifically is he doing for these laid-off workers in Toronto and their families?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, obviously no one ever likes to see a Canadian lose a job, although obviously these have to do with particular business decisions of particular companies. What I would note is that following our economic action plan of low taxes and balanced budgets, we've created 1.2 million more new jobs than have been lost, Mr. Speaker. That's 1.2 million additional people working. And it's important, Mr. Speaker, that we continue to focus on the needs of Canadian families, lowering their taxes and creating a good business environment so that we continue to have the kind of superior record we've had as an economy during the post-recession.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, part-time, precarious work in the service sector, and let's look at the record there, Mr. Speaker. 1,500 emplois.
1,500 jobs lost at Jacob, 1,800 at Max, 2,200 at Sears, and 17,000 jobs at Target. Does the Prime Minister regret having completely neglected manufacturing and retail and putting all our eggs in the mining, especially oil and gas industries? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the manufacturing industries have been very supportive of this government's policies, and they've criticized the NDP's position, which would be to raise taxes. When we talk about 1.2 million new net jobs, 47% of those are full-time, and 3/4 are in the private sector, and 2/3 are well-paying jobs. The figures speak for themselves. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The Canadians know the true answer, Mr. Speaker, and it's not what the Prime Minister just said. Does the Prime Minister believe that the civilian watchdog over CSIS, which was created 30 years ago, is today equipped to adequately monitor the activities of CSIS? Does that watchdog have what it needs today? It was created 30 years ago. Does it have what it needs today to do the job? The Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have a strong system for oversight in our system for reviewing police activities. There has to be a judicial warrant. The system has lots of safeguards. The solution, though, is not to go after the police, it's to go after the terrorists.
Order, come on down. The Security Intelligence Review Committee is the same body that said in its last report that CSIS, quote, seriously misled it in one of its investigations, and that was just last year. How can the Prime Minister contemplate radically expanding the powers of CSIS without equally expanding oversight? Or is it because the Prime Minister believes, just like his minister, that the oversight that protects Canadians from abuse of power is just red tape?
Here, here. Speaker, I think what the example the Leader of the Opposition cites indicates that, in fact, the system works, that, in fact, CERC does, in fact, take its responsibilities very seriously and provides robust oversight, and has noted that these agencies operate within the law. On top of that, there's additional clauses in this law that require additional powers to be used to seek judicial authorization. So the oversight is there. The oversight is strong. What we need to do, Mr. Speaker, is make sure our police and security agencies have the tools they need. That's the real job here, and make sure we're not going after them, but we're going after terrorists and jihadists.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister should know that freedom and safety go hand in hand, and it's the duty of any responsible government to promote and protect both. They have to do both at the same time. But instead of that, this Prime Minister has adopted divisive language, attacked anyone who's raised questions, and failed to adopt even the most basic recommendations to improve oversight. Will he agree to amend this bill to enhance oversight, yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the bill already enhances oversight, but what I would say is the following, Mr. Speaker. Obviously we agree on this side that freedom and security go hand in hand, which is why on this side we support some security measures. Now, how does the Leader of the NDP, if he thinks they go hand in hand, explain his opposition to every single security measure we ever put forward? Mr. Speaker, that's not That's not responsible. That's the kind of approach we expect from a party that takes public funds and uses them for party office.
Mr. Speaker, infrastructure investment creates the jobs.
Order. We're on to the next question. Order. The honourable member for Papineau.
Mr. Speaker, infrastructure investment creates the jobs and growth that we need to build a stronger middle class. Canada's premiers and mayors are asking for more federal investment, but instead, the Building Canada Fund was cut by 90%. Will the government scrap its tax break for the wealthy and restore funding for job-creating infrastructure?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we obviously agree that infrastructure is important for economic development. That's why we're running the largest, longest, biggest infrastructure program. Just within the last few weeks, Mr. Speaker, I've announced additional funds at the federal level to make sure we eliminate the infrastructure deficit. So unlike the Liberal Party, we don't believe it's necessary to hike taxes on families in order to fund infrastructure. We can have lower taxes, balanced budgets, and investments that will grow our economy. That's what we do.
Last year, the Building Canada Fund was cut from over $2 billion to only $210 million for the entire country, nearly 90%. This year, as our economy faces new challenges, the fund is still only at $210 million. An April budget means a missed construction season. Will this government step up and be the partner that provinces and municipalities need it to be?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, here are the facts. 2 years ago, Mr. Speaker, the government announced a program of over $70 billion of infrastructure investments over the next 10 years, Mr. Speaker. Just in the last few weeks, I announced an additional $6 billion going into just federal infrastructure, most of that to be spent over the next 3 years, Mr. Speaker. Those are big numbers. Those are the real numbers. And I urge the leader of the Liberal Party to familiarize himself with that basic arithmetic.
The honourable member from Papineau. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister insists on handing out tax breaks to the richest of the rich instead of investing in infrastructure. He's got his priorities mixed up. The premiers have called for, and Canadians need, infrastructure investment to boost economic growth and create jobs. Instead of giving to the richy rich, will the Prime Minister reverse the 90% cuts to infrastructure? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we agree that it's important to invest in infrastructure, and that is why we have spent $75 billion over the years it's the largest infrastructure program in Canadian history. We disagree with the Liberal Party that taxes should be raised on families to pay for infrastructure investment. We will have a balanced budget with tax breaks and investments that are targeted to encourage economic growth in areas like infrastructure. The honourable member for Rimouski-Neigette. Mr. Speaker, the closure of Target stores in Canada caused 17,000 jobs in 133 communities. It also affects 1,800 suppliers whom Target owes over $5 billion. The list of creditors is 45 pages long. Some suppliers won't survive. The Conservatives have failed to diversify our economy, and Canadians are paying the price. Again, I ask the government, where's the plan to combat the sluggishness and stimulate job creation? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are concerned about Target employees who've lost their jobs. The failure of this American company in Canada is of concern, but we are in contact with employees to provide them all the necessary services, including EI, training programs, and hooking them up with other available jobs in the country. We'll continue to help those who are unemployed and continue to create jobs with our policy of low taxes. But, Mr. Speaker, the retail sector has often been used as a lifeline for workers in other industries who lose their job. Even if those jobs are cut, this is not a good time to be looking for another job in retail. So where's the government's plan for everybody who's looking for jobs because they have to continue paying their bills? The Honourable Minister of Employment. As I said, Mr. Speaker, clearly we continue to make available services to the affected population, including training and EI. We're developing a job bank that will make it easier to connect employers with potential employees. We want to make sure that our training programs are more geared to the labor market's needs. So ultimately, we have to continue cutting taxes to create jobs and boost economic growth.
Mr. Speaker, a lot of these workers are part-time and they don't qualify for EI. That's the problem they created. Job losses are mounting, retail stores are closing, and the Conservatives have no plan and they have no budget. 133 Target stores start liquidation tomorrow. 17,600 people are losing their jobs. Hundreds of other retail stores are closing. Thousands more jobs lost. And this minister thinks if he just ignores it, well, it'll go away. Well, it won't. Canadians need a plan. Where is their plan?
The Honourable Minister of
Our plan has resulted in one of the best job creation records in the developed world, with the creation of 1.2 million net new jobs. One of the best economic growth records of any of the major developed economies. Now, I don't know what the NDP is suggesting. Obviously, we're all concerned for the employees of Target, but is the NDP suggesting that the taxpayers should subsidize this failed American retail outlet in Canada? We don't believe so, Mr. Speaker. To the contrary, we believe we should continue reducing taxes to create economic growth and jobs, rather than adopting the NDP approach of higher taxes, reckless spending, and bigger debts.
The Honourable Member for York South Worcester.
Well, that plan isn't working. The job losses are piling up, and middle-class families are falling further behind, Mr. Speaker. On top of thousands of jobs lost in retail, 383 workers at Wrigley Canada just found out that the Wrigley's manufacturing plant in Toronto is closing. They're losing their jobs. And the Conservatives have no budget and no plan to fix the damage that they've done. When will they do the right thing and agree to the NDP's plan to kickstart manufacturing and job creation?
Well, here's what the Canadian manufacturers and exporters, actual people who work in the manufacturing in Canada, they looked at the NDP plan that my colleague is talking about, and they've said that the NDP plan will put investment and jobs at risk. By contrast, here's what they've said about the Conservative approach. The programs the Conservative government has put in place will support manufacturing, and they do it very well. You know, Mr. Speaker, we've had the unfortunate in this country, in British Columbia, Nova Scotia, a couple places of having NDP governments. And we know what the NDP plan and approach is for small business. If you want to create a small business under an NDP government, it's quite easy. You start a large business and you just wait.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Despite what the Prime Minister says, the mayors of all the big cities in Canada are singing from the same song sheet right now. And the provinces are saying the same thing. There's a whopping infrastructure deficit. The municipalities need the federal government to invest in infrastructure and affordable social housing. The government's going to have to play catch-up here, and that will create jobs. Why is the government unable to work with other levels of government on job creation and infrastructure development? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, our government has introduced the largest and the longest infrastructure plan in Canada's history, $75 billion over the next 10 years. This includes the $53 billion New Building Canada plan for municipal, provincial and territorial infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, we are making record investments and keeping taxes low. The NDP, in addition to needing to mortgage their own party, it would appear, would also mortgage the future of our kids and our grandkids.
The honourable member for Beaches East York.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's big city mayors are calling for an urban agenda. They are looking for collaboration with the federal government to address crumbling infrastructure, a crisis in affordable housing, and funding for public transit. But the Conservatives govern as though cities don't exist, as if 80% of Canadians don't live in urban communities. Why are they leaving cities to fend for themselves? Why won't they support the infrastructure necessary to build more competitive and liberal and livable cities?
Order. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary is rising to answer the question. We should allow him to do so. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, speaking of crumbling, Mr. Speaker, a question from the NDP. Mr. Speaker, our government, our Conservative government, is making record investments in infrastructure. This includes public transit. In fact, public transit is an eligible category under every component of the New Building Canada plan. What's more, we respect the jurisdiction of municipalities and provinces. They choose, they identify their infrastructure project priorities. We look forward to continuing to work with our partners, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Newton North Delta.
As job losses mount in Alberta, the Conservatives are busy making it easier for employers to hire temporary foreign workers. Today we learned they secretly made a deal with Alberta to allow employers there to exceed the 30% cap. Just like they have so many times before, the Conservatives made a big splashy announcement about cracking down, and now they're quietly creating loopholes. When are the Conservatives finally going to get serious about protecting Canadian jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes the NDP's hypocrisy really is breathtaking. You know, this is the party that demanded that we give permanent residency to every single temporary foreign worker in Canada, which would imply, by the way, about doubling Canadian immigration levels. Now, Canadians don't support that. However, there are about 1,000 temporary foreign workers in Alberta with pending permanent residency applications who are about to fall out of status. We're just going to allow them to stay in Canada until a decision is made on their permanent residency application, which is exactly what the NDP asked us to do. Mr. Speaker, why can't the Socialists ever take yes for an answer?
The honourable member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. While jobs are being lost by the thousands, the Conservatives continue to give in to blackmail from the oil patch in Alberta. Last year, they made a big show of saying that they'd finally fixed all the problems with the Foreign Temporary Workers program. But today, we learned that they played with the rules in Alberta to allow employers to exceed the hiring cap at the expense of Canadians. When are the Conservatives finally going to get serious about protecting and creating Canadian jobs? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I find it embarrassing what the member just said. The NDP is the party that required the government to allow 100% of foreign workers to stay in Canada permanently. That's not what Canadians want, nor this government. There are 1,000 workers in Alberta who applied for permanent residency in Canada. There's a good chance that the government of Alberta may accept those applications. They'll be allowed to stay until their applications have been fully processed, and that's as it should be.
lowest level in 5 years. 200,000 jobs that were in the economy before the recession are gone and have not come back. And Conservatives are panicking with no budget and no plan. Does anyone else notice how desperate Conservatives have become to talk about anything other than the economy? But it's their mismanagement that has led to 1.3 million Canadians being out of a job. And New Democrats will keep putting forward solutions to help Canadians and to help the manufacturing sector. But when are we going to see this finance minister actually stand up with some of his own solutions, with his own budget perhaps? When are we going to see a plan to get Canadians back to work? Why won't he answer a simple question?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the NDP sees a plan, but they voted against every single element of it. They voted against cutting taxes for small businesses. They voted against cutting income taxes. They voted against cutting the GST. They voted against increased investments in job training, Mr. Speaker. They have voted against every constructive measure, the Canada Apprenticeship Loan, the Canada Job Grant, the incentive grants for new apprentices, Mr. Speaker. Everything that has helped to result in this country having one of the best job creation records in the developed world has been opposed by the NDP, and their only solution, higher taxes, reckless spending, and more debt. That would lead to more jobs being lost, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Guelph.
The Veterans Ombudsman said he, quote, disappointed that the update provides no details on how the substantive deficiencies with the new Veterans Charter are to be addressed. And he continues, we're not starting from scratch. Much research has been done. Many reports have focused on them. Now VAC needs to act. The Royal Canadian Legion said the government had plenty of time to make changes, but lacks the willingness to look after our veterans. The minister thinks veterans can be satisfied with a late Friday night tweet. What happened to his new approach? Is he really any different from his predecessor?
Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as that member knows, I was in Hamilton on Friday, where I spoke directly with Canadian Forces members and veterans on the new Veterans Charter, while opening an operational stress injury clinic in an area that will serve veterans in Guelph, Mr. Speaker. In addition to that, the report was filed with the committee, and I'm also not going to apologize for engaging and talking with veterans wherever they are, in our legions or online, Mr. Speaker. I'm listening and acting, and I'd hope he'd get on board.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville. Mr. Speaker, the scrapping of the long-form census was one of the worst things the Conservatives have ever done, and it's certainly the dumbest. Paul Jacobson, president of the Canadian Association of Business Economics, said that it has become all but impossible to draw intelligent or even accurate conclusions about critical aspects of economic policy. To repair the damage done to our economy, will the Conservatives support the excellent bill put forward by the member for Kingston and the Islands? The Honourable Minister. If my colleague wants to support an excellent bill in this arena, he should support my colleague from Compton Middlesex London's bill. In 2016, as in 2011, the census will provide high-quality information upon which to base decisions, policy decisions, and program decisions.
Centre.
Simply not true. Everyone in business knows we live in the age of big data. That's why Canada's leading economists and the CFIB are united in calling for the return of the long-form census. As Roger Martin of the University of Toronto said, directly contradicting what we've just heard, it is just disinformation to say the current survey works. So will this government finally reverse its anti-science, anti-business, and anti-diluvian policy and return the long-form census as my colleague's bill calls for?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Thank you.
Quite ridiculous, of course, Mr. Speaker, as Wayne Smith, the CEO of Stats Canada, has testified before the industry committee and has said quite clearly to Canadians, Mr. Speaker, that the 2011 census provided Canadians with the data that we require as a government, that all levels of government require in order to provide the necessary services to Canadians. And the 2016 census will yield quality data for all Canadians that they can rely on as we move forward.
The honourable member for Sherbrooke.
Mr. Speaker, almost a year ago we asked the Minister for Democratic Reform if he'd consulted the Chief Electoral Officer on his unfair elections reforms. He said yes, but it wasn't the case. Today we're facing another bill that violates the rights of Canadian voters. This time, did the Minister really consult Elections Canada? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm aware of the position of the Chief Electoral Officer of Canada. And what we are attempting to do with the bill is ensure that people vote showing a piece of identity or an identity card. This is the case for Canadians who live here in Canada. And with the adoption of the bill that's before the House, it will also be the case for all Canadians who live elsewhere.
The honourable member for Toronto Danforth.
The minister keeps spinning that somehow this new bill is about preventing fraudulent voting from abroad. Now, we've seen this movie before, Mr. Speaker. The reality is the minister is creating new obstacles, new hoops to jump through that will make it exceptionally difficult for all Canadians abroad to vote in our elections, and for no reason at all. So can the minister provide a single scrap of evidence that Canadians voting from abroad are engaging any form of cheating whatsoever?
Mr. Speaker, 87% of Canadians believe that when you vote, it's reasonable to expect you to bring some ID. Now, obviously, when people vote from outside of the country, they don't present that ID in person. That's why the bill before the House would allow them to do so by scanning the documents, emailing them in, requesting the ballot be sent to them by mail, which they can send back. The timelines work out for them to do that. The bottom line is this. The bill will ensure that those who vote are citizens and that they have identification to prove that they are eligible to vote in the riding in which their vote will be counted.
Mr. Speaker, this government doesn't seem to get the message. More powers for CSIS means a need for better oversight. In case the minister missed it, let me quote the latest annual report from the Security Intelligence Review Committee. This report said, quote, "It seems reasonable for Canadians to ask whether the intelligence accountability framework that was designed 30 years ago is still appropriate to deal with the realities of contemporary intelligence work." That's what the CIRC annual report says. The Conservatives agree that the intelligence environment has changed. So why are they so opposed to better oversight?
There is oversight. We believe the oversight in place is consistent, and it is third-party, non-partisan, independent expert oversight that is required in this instance, Mr. Speaker. And so those key powers that exist in the legislation are subject to that oversight, in addition to the judicial oversight and the oversight of the Attorney General or prosecutors working with the police. We believe that's sufficient. We believe that's the way that this bill will protect Canadians and, as the Leader of the Opposition said, strike that balance between security and the need to protect Canadians' rights.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. Yesterday, the Minister spoke at great lengths about the program to fight violent extremism. However, it was never questioned of a new fund earmarked for it, even if the program's been in place since 2013. The Minister says that we have to take urgent steps to protect Canadians. So why drag his feet when it comes time to fight radicalization, to provide funding for that fight?
Well, Mr. Speaker, with respect to this legislation, it does include tools that will allow the authorities to take practical action regarding radicalization, and that includes, of course, the takedown of material that might be seen as promoting or actively engaging terrorists. In addition, there are already in place abilities for our security forces to engage with the public and engage with groups that might be subject or prone to radicalization. We have cultural roundtables, Mr. Speaker. There is a number of ways in which outreach helps us in this regard. And with respect to resources, we've consistently increased resources while members of the NDP have consistently opposed those increases.
The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, families
families in Calgary Centre have told me that what they really want from their federal government is tax relief, and they also want direct support, money in their pockets that they can use as they see fit, Mr. Speaker, to help with the cost of raising their kids. What they don't want is big government bureaucracy and waste. Mr. Speaker, could the Minister of State for Social Development please tell us and tell Canadian families what our government is doing for them?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And the member from Calgary Centre is right. Parents with children need support. They need lower taxes. That's exactly what we are delivering with our family tax cut, which will benefit close to 2 million families with children, and our expansion to our universal childcare benefit, which will benefit every family in Canada with children. Mr. Speaker, families that I've spoken to are excited. They're looking forward to this benefit and the tax cut. What they need to know, and what they know, is that the Liberals would take that away. The NDP would take it away. Instead, they would introduce reckless spending, higher taxes, and more debt. This Prime Minister, this government will not let that happen.
Honourable Member for Notre-Dame-de-Grâce-la-Chine. Firefighters in Canada are concerned, and rightly so. They're calling for concrete steps by the government to improve the safety of Canadians, and especially to save lives. Our firefighters are on the front lines every day, and they know what makes a difference between life and death. We need to listen to them. They presented a detailed plan to the government, for example, to improve the safety of residences for seniors. Will the government accept to work with the firefighters, the provinces, and the municipalities to better protect public safety?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the honourable member for that question. As the member is fully aware, the firefighters across this country do not fall under federal jurisdiction, but I will let you know that I'm actually married to a firefighter, so I'm very And so when it comes to issues concerning keeping Canadians safe, putting out fires, I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that I'm very supportive of the work that my husband does to keep the residents of Toronto safe.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Rouge River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Recent train derailments in Lac-Mégantic, Plaster Rock, New Brunswick, and Clare, Saskatchewan have demonstrated the threats that first responders face when trains with dangerous goods derail. Yet too many have to face these dangers without adequate training in hazardous materials. The Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs has long called for special training to deal with derailment specifically. They call for this training to be provided in cooperation with the rail companies. When will the government finally put into place a comprehensive plan to get firefighters the training that they need?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs for being such a great resource in terms of making sure that on the advisory councils associated with transportation of dangerous goods, they're giving the input that is needed. We work very closely with firefighters, we work very closely with fire chiefs to ensure that they have the information and they have the ability to inform the people that they work with of the dangers associated with transportation of dangerous goods. We'll continue to work with them, we value their advice, and we'll make sure that we keep them as safe as we can.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
As a City Councillor and MP, I've been advocating for a new border crossing for the Windsor-Detroit corridor. This is crucial for our economy and prosperity for both Canada and the United States. But this government has negotiated such a poor deal, Canada has to front nearly $1 billion and pay for both countries. Despite a U.S. federal budget of roughly $3.5 trillion, the Conservatives couldn't even get the United States to pay for their own customs plaza, leaving it all up to Canadians. This is more ongoing infrastructure incompetence. How did it come to this?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary of the Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the member wants to actually support the new Detroit River International Crossing, he should try voting for it for once in this House. Appropriation after appropriation put forward to make this project a reality, to create 10,000 construction jobs, to use Canadian steel in this project, Mr. Speaker, and he stands every time to oppose that. He should get on board and he should be ashamed of his record.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
I'm proud of my record because I voted against bad budgets and left Canadians behind. This government is making it up as they go along. And this member said this. That member said this. We are not paying for a U.S. Customs Plaza. His own words, eat them now. The Prime Minister's press release said the U.S. Plaza is, quote, the responsibility of the U.S. government. Since Canadians have become the sole financer of the project, will the minister come clean and tell Canadians? How will this affect tolls? Will Canadians get their money back with interest? And how long will that take?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, the member knows that discussions with our American partners on their investment in this border crossing continues, but make no mistake, with every single budget we put forward investment to create 10,000 construction jobs, to move the auto industry forward, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that the steel industry gets their steel used in this particular project, everything supporting jobs and growth for Windsor. That member votes against it. He should be ashamed, and voters will tell him so in the next election.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister responsible for Foreign Affairs. Ukraine is currently facing significant challenges, Mr. Speaker, and it requires continued international support. My question to the Minister is, has the government discussed with the United States or our allies about whether further military support for Ukraine is in fact required?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canada supports the ambitions of the Ukrainians for a free, democratic and prosperous country. We have been supporting them in these efforts. We have imposed a broad range of political and economic sanctions, pledging support to help Ukraine stabilize its economy and to promote economic and social development, and we are providing non-lethal security assistance and training for members of the Ukrainian military.
Whether flying over a school or a town hall, an embassy abroad, or a Canadian Forces base, Canada's flag and a maple leaf are recognized worldwide as the distinctive symbols of Canada's sovereignty and are a source of pride to Canadians. As we prepare for the upcoming 50th anniversary of our flag, I stand among numerous members who have been active in promoting, in a non-partisan manner, the fundamental role of maple leaf plays in our history. Mr. Speaker, will the government inform members of this House of its plans for the promotion of our pennant's upcoming 50th anniversary?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, please allow me to thank that member for his devotion to this very important event. And the 50th anniversary of the National Flag of Canada will be celebrated across the country. We have flag-raising ceremonies in schools and municipalities across the country. The Canadian Mint is introducing a collectible coin, and Canada Post will be introducing special stamps. We've also partnered with great organizations like Girl Guides, the Scouts, and the Royal Canadian Legions to promote this milestone to thousands of Canadians. There's a CFL partnership coming. There's more to come. I hope everyone will celebrate the flag and celebrate the Canadians that we are today.
The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is there anybody responsible for Canada Post in this place? Mid-December, the municipality of Lac-Saint-Paul.
The
Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle has the floor. The Honourable Member. In mid-December, the municipality of Lac-Saint-Paul lost its post office. One municipal councillor has to drive 16 kilometers return every day to go and get the municipality's mail. His neighbour gets mail at a community box located at the end of Logging Road. Each time he gets out of his wheelchair from his car, he's afraid of seeing a big truck coming down the road. Does the minister think that mail gets delivered by itself, like a Liberal budget, that balances itself?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've said many times in the House, Canada Post is an arm's-length independent crown corporation with the responsibility to ensure that they operate on a self-sufficiency basis. And in doing so, they need to ensure that they're making up for the loss of revenue associated with simply fewer letters being delivered here in Canada. As a result, they have a 5-point plan, and in this 5-point plan, they're taking action to ensure that they can make sure that in the future, Canada Post will be there to serve our needs.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, Canada Post has informed my office of an alleged information campaign among people in my riding who will see new community boxes installed. But Canada Post has refused to share the list of locations selected and didn't take the time to consult any owners. This lack of transparency and real consultation is Canada Post's trademark. Why is the minister allowing Canada Post to take action without consulting citizens with respect to where they're going to be placing these community boxes on their land?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My understanding from Canada Post is that indeed they are consulting with communities across Canada. But I would like to take the rest of this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to point out that perhaps the NDP should consult with taxpayers about whether or not they plan on paying back the money that they used in their budgets for purposes that were not associated with the need.
The honourable member for Pickering, Scarborough East.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday on the occasion of the 71st anniversary of the Devil's Brigade, joining the Allied offensive during the Second World War in Anzio, Italy, the legendary Joint Canadian-American Special Elite Unit was honored by our neighbors in Washington, D.C. Can the Minister of Veteran Affairs please comment on this important event?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
My colleague from the Durham region for that question and for his service in the Canadian Forces. He's the only Afghan veteran in this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago, the Justice Minister, then the Defence Minister, presented the Award for Operational Excellence to veterans of the Devil's Brigade, and he was joined by the Prime Minister in that ceremony. Yesterday, I was honoured to join Canadian veterans from the Devil's Brigade and their families when they received the Congressional Gold Medal for their brave service to democracy and freedom, Mr. Speaker. While only a few MPs could attend the ceremony, I know that all MPs join me in thanking Canada's legendary Devil's Brigade.
The honourable member for Bonavista, Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor.
Mr. Speaker, recently there was a large public protest in the town of Twillingate in my riding, and they are demanding the removal of oil from the sunken ship known as the Manonas L. Now, currently, the Coast Guard has a temporary measure in place called a cofferdam, and they're calling it so far effective, and that's all they plan to do. But in 2013, the Coast Guard removed oil from a sunken ship off the coast of British Columbia, and here's what they said at the time, quote, "Paying the lump sum to be rid of the problem was a better solution than paying for multiple temporary fixes over time." To the Minister, finally, please, pay the lump sum, get rid of that oil, save our shores off the northeast coast of the island of Newfoundland.
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The top priority of the Canadian Coast Guard, of course, is protection of our marine environment and also the safety of those at sea. In December, the Coast Guard did their planned maintenance on the cofferdam of the Manolas, Mr. Speaker. They inspected the hull, which is in good condition, and no oil has been detected since that time. Mr. Speaker, further, I've instructed our officials to review long-term options for the Manolas.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. The so-called mitigation measures for the Port de Québec, the Quebec port, are not working. New analysis of samples measuring the quantity of nickel in the air in Limoilou were published in January. The analysis shows a deterioration in air quality. 1 out of every 5 days, the baseline standards is exceeded, and that's unacceptable. What does the Minister of Transport intend to do to protect the people of Quebec City and ensure that Arrimage Québec complies with air quality standards? The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my understanding is that the Port of Quebec, which is arm's length from the government, is working with its tenants to ensure that they're operating in a way that is sensitive to the environment around them. I know that they meet with their tenants. I know that they meet with the community on these issues, and I encourage them to continue to do so.
The Honourable Member for Yukon.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Speaker, my constituents have been clear that they can't afford another tax hike. And recently we heard from the Minister about the impact that carbon tax would have on Northerners' lives who already have a high cost of living. And I'm wondering if the Minister for the Environment can update this House on any strategic investments that we're making in the North that will help improve the quality of life for Northerners. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
to thank my colleague from Yukon for that question. Every year, our government has made important investments in the North that have improved infrastructure, healthcare services, broadband services. The NDP have voted against all these measures.
Outrageous.
The Liberal leader recently told Northern media that our government has focused too much on improving infrastructure in the North. I'm proud to be part of a government that stands up for Northerners and would not impose a carbon tax that would raise the price of things like food, hunting supplies, fuel, and so on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Hull-Aylmer. Timeframes for sponsorship in Canada keep increasing. A citizen in Hull-Aylmer put in an application to sponsor her husband in September 2013. Since April 2014, we have been questioning the minister's office, and we always get the same answer. Next month, ma'am. The problem is that the following month, the timeframes are pushed back again. How can the minister explain that an application filed in Canada takes 3 times longer to process than one done abroad? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we have made progress eliminating the backlog since this government took power in 2006, including in the sponsorship program. Since the announcement in December of a new initiative by this government for the expedited granting of work permits, that we have, in fact, done 3,000 this year. Applications are being processed much more quickly, and people who expect their applications to be processed quickly can rest assured that we are working in that regard.
Monsieur le Président,
The Honourable Member for Haute-Gaspésie-Métis-Matane-Matapédia. Provincial Premiers meeting in Ottawa last week reiterated the strategic importance of investing in infrastructure, calling the issue a key aspect of economic growth. Now, I had the opportunity to discuss this issue on several occasions with the Minister of Infrastructure, and we talked about the importance of extending the runway of the Montjoly Regional Airport. Honestly, the Minister has always shown good understanding of the issue and the strategic importance that it represents for the region. Is the government preparing to announce us some good news? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Government has made record investments in infrastructure. The New Building Canada plan was open for business just last March, and in less than a year, projects representing approximately $5 billion have already been identified for funding under the New Building Canada plan, Mr. Speaker. We look forward to working with municipal and provincial and territorial partners as we continue to renew infrastructure, create jobs and prosperity in this country.
That concludes question period for today. I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Abdullah Gameda, Speaker of the House of People's Representatives of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. Tabling of documents, dépôt de documents. Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers, déclaration de ministre. Reports from interparliamentary delegations. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Works.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 34.1, I have the honour to table in the House in both official languages the report of the Canadian branch of the Assemblée parlementaire de la francophonie concerning its participation in the meeting, the Bureau meeting, and the 39th ordinary session of the Assemblée parlementaire de la francophonie in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, from July 8th to 12th, 2013. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Rapport de délégation interparlementaire. Presenting reports from committees. The Honourable Member for Prince Edward Hastings.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And today I have the honour to present in both